Knowledge that brings well-being. Chapter 3. The intelligence of nature. Great emphasis is placed today on diversity of opinion and ideas, everyone having their own data streams and then trying to build consensus from data-driven intelligence. However, we have been trying to build consensus out of diversity of data for hundreds of years, and it has only led to greater and greater incoherence. It may seem helpful to try to build consensus amidst divergent views, but this methodology is in fact backward and anachronistic. We really need to be focusing on ways of training people to lead, innovate, and create using methods of collaboration that are not based on data at all. The emphasis should no longer be on relying on one's narrow data or on self-promotion and furthering one's own agenda, but on open intelligence and the mutual success and benefit of all. If a person is locked into a system, then the methods and goals the person is interested in will be based on that system alone. Even though they may have great ideas about all kinds of things, their thinking is so ingrained in the system that they will keep referencing everything back to the system, rather than setting aside all systems. What is needed is the courage and insight to challenge the authority of knowledge. For people living in this time as well as in future generations, we want to have a form of knowledge that isn't constantly referring back to past knowledge in order to verify itself. We cannot continue trusting in the authority of past knowledge and acting according to it. The young people today are questioning that past knowledge more and more, but in another way they're going along with it. For the young people today, as well as for all people today, discovering the nature of our own existence is a most worthwhile endeavor, rather than continuing to hold to systems of knowledge that haven't worked. Young people have more of a carefree attitude and are really contributing a great deal. Many of them are becoming interested in being a part of an interconnected group rather than remaining separate as disconnected individuals. They are very interested in the benefit of the whole and having the world be a place for everyone to live together peacefully. At the same time, there can be a certain lack of seriousness that really is required at this pivotal point. Even though we can be carefree, in order to innovate and lead, we need to also be totally serious and clear. This requires standing up and saying, "No, I strongly disagree with what is going on, and I want to find a method that we can use that does not repeat the mistakes of the past." The power of open intelligence is so immense, but it doesn't seem immense when it's bogged down in particularized systems of thought. The immense power of the intellect that is present in open intelligence has complete mastery over all data. This intelligence is the intelligence of nature, completely clear, stable, and laser-like. This intelligence of nature, our basic knowledge, understands that all knowledge is present all at once, that there is never any knowledge that is discovered or invented. It's just recognized as being already present. Usually we think of inventions and discoveries as something completely new, but all knowledge is already present in one time, non-dimensional and zero-less. We'll never be able to make sense of the nature of existence by rearranging the same old puzzle pieces. We want to be clear about what is unworkable and look for what is workable, and above all, we have to be questioning all authorities of knowledge. In order to really question what authorities of knowledge are saying, we first have to have instinctive recognition of open intelligence, and that can only come about in our own experience. When we have full recognition of open intelligence, We can hear any authority of knowledge and recognize whether it is spot on or in grievous error. Seeing things in a new way. When we don't know how to connect with the simplicity of the natural presence of our experience, then we scamper about lost in a conventional way of thinking. Most of us never have access to any kind of knowledge that will jolt us out of our arrogance and ignorance. There are some interesting examples in the past of how humankind has completely misperceived reality. A common belief many years ago was that the Earth was flat and that if a ship sailed too far it would fall off the edge. However, some people believed that the Earth wasn't flat, and they proved it by traveling across the oceans without falling off the edge. The people who thought the Earth wasn't flat developed this new notion, then slowly gathered a few supporters, and then proved that their idea was true. Yet, it took some time for their discovery to become common knowledge. In a similar way, we have fundamental misperceptions about our own reality. Humankind has been very focused on appearances, and descriptive frameworks have been developed and believed in which describe a dualistic reality based on good and bad. The premise is that there are positive and negative things that occur, and the more we have of the positive, the less we'll have of the negative, and vice versa. Even though we've assumed this and deeply believed in it, it has in fact never been the case. We've never been able to eradicate the negative by accumulating the positive, not within each of us as individuals or within society in general. When we really understand how we've misled ourselves in the past, then maybe we can say to ourselves, well, if we've misled ourselves so grossly in the past, perhaps we're misleading ourselves now too. Is this assumption about good and bad one of the ways we are misleading ourselves? When we don't accurately perceive our reality, then we live a life based on confusion. We really don't understand ourselves, and we don't fully understand much of what is going on. We fail to see the very simple nature of reality because we have relied on descriptions to determine what we're experiencing. By relying on descriptions rather than on our actual instinctive experience of reality, we are always looking for a new description to replace the description we are currently having. We're always caught up in our data, and we overlook the basic state of everything just as it is. The basic state is beyond all phenomenal appearances. As data are only expressions of the basic state itself, they have no independent or individual substantiality, identity, or existence other than the basic state. When phenomena are reduced to their fundamental essence, there's only the basic state and nothing else. As long as we don't see that everything rests within a basic state, we can never go beyond our self-limiting ideas about who we are and what the world is. Instinctive comprehension. In short moments, we talk about open intelligence and data. Most of us learn to focus on data and rearrange them in order to have a good life. We never learn anything about open intelligence, which is the fundamental intelligence, the balanced view in which all the data appear. We never learn there is something about us that is profound and which has mastery over all the data. Reliance on that view rather than on data provides for fundamental intelligence that is entirely clear. By the power of open intelligence, an exponential type of intelligence opens up. We're able to see all kinds of things about our knowledge tools that we've never seen before. We're able to take our specialized field of knowledge to exponential heights of benefit. We don't become wrapped up in our knowledge as a way of identifying ourselves as someone special. Rather, our knowledge is directed towards the benefit of all. We see ways to benefit ourselves and all of human society that we couldn't possibly have seen by relying on data. No matter what kind of method we're trying, environmentalism, political activism, spirituality, science, there are many data associated with all of them. By the power of open intelligence, one is able to subsume all data in a fundamental intelligence, rather than clinging to fixed ideas of what science is, what philosophy is, or what spirituality and religion are. Even though we've made great advances in human society, we've also created a precipitous environment for ourselves. We continue to hold to actions based on points of view that could lead to the extinction of the human race. Without the clarity of open intelligence, actions can be taken in a blind fashion, such as dumping pollutants into the air and water or spreading them over the earth. However, from open intelligence, it becomes impossible to take such action because all actions are naturally of benefit to all. We sustain our own selves in a beneficial way, and by learning directly from that experience, we're able to benefit others. There's an immediate seeing, a sort of forecast scenario of exactly how any kind of action would turn out. This comes about not in a thought-driven way, but in a deeply instinctive way. There's a knowing about what to do and what not to do, knowing how to act and when to act, and this is natural to everyone. We human beings are an expression of an intelligent process that can understand the nature of all of reality. One could say that our responsibility is to instinctively comprehend our role in nature, and by the power of open intelligence we can do that. Basic knowledge. The basic state is the only source of well-being. You could have all the knowledge in the world about every single phenomenon, what it's made of, and everything about its functions according to the most advanced forms of physics, mathematics, and analysis, and you still wouldn't have well-being. Well-being can only come from knowledge of the basic state. The basic knowledge of who you are is absolutely lucid, unobstructed, and clear, yet it can go unrecognized if you are not alert to its presence. The only way to have that basic knowledge is to instinctively bring it to everything you do. When you bring basic knowledge to your experience, living life becomes effortless. Otherwise, life is a lot of work. It's not possible to use dualistic language systems to describe something that is beyond description. This is why the instinctive recognition of open intelligence is so important. Unless there is the instinctive recognition in relation to one's own experience, it is impossible to gain access to open intelligence. If someone was introduced to the idea of open intelligence, but had not applied it in a thoroughgoing fashion to all of their experiential understanding of their own life, there would be no way for them to ever be able to describe it in a way that would really ring true. Open intelligence can never be adequately described in the scholarly or academic language that currently exists today, because that kind of language can never awaken the instinctive recognition of open intelligence. The spontaneous self-release of the here and now can never be captured by description. It is a song that needs to be sung in a certain way, and when the song is sung in that certain way, then boom, people can get it easily. What greater adventure could there possibly be than to hear the song of what is really true about yourself ringing within you in an undeniable way? A common language. For the first time in history, human society is a global community, and it is important to see what would be of most benefit in the most effective and practical way for the people of the world. We want to see how we can solve the hideous problems we've created. We also want to further strengthen the great things we have come up with to meet the challenges we face. This can best come about through using a common language that is utilizable worldwide. A common language does not have to do with a widely spoken language like English being the one language that people use to communicate with one another. Rather, the language that is being described here has to do with the ideas, vocabulary, examples, and insights that are understandable to the most people, regardless of what national language is being used. Whether this common language is used between individuals or in organizations and communities, it has to be a language that people everywhere can understand. This universality of language will be a springboard for great benefit in an all-inclusive way. A great deal of effort has been made towards discovering what works in this regard. Trainings have been developed that forward the idea of open intelligence for everyone all over the world, and the trainings have been made commonly available in a language that can be easily grasped by many, many people. Tools have been developed for people who would benefit from using them, and it has become clear with experience that the tools work everywhere. So, a committed group of people can make themselves available, and they can completely serve whoever naturally comes forward and wants to adopt what's already working. A lot of this grew up out of people's experience in dealing individually with their own data. They came to see that skillfully dealing with data is not a spiritual or religious matter. It can be called that, but more basically, it's a human matter. The actual context is that of human nature and the optimal human condition, which is a much broader context than the spiritual or religious perspective alone. As soon as open intelligence is put into a fixed category, such as spiritual or religious, fewer people may be interested in it. When we find something within human nature that is a source of complete relief, then it's important to draw on that. What human society needs is that which is of immediate benefit to many, many people, not just a few. Relaxing with compelling thoughts. As everything is allowed to be at rest in the basic state, the open intelligence that is inseparable from the basic state becomes more and more obvious at all times. But what does that look like exactly? Let's say that you have a thought, and then that leads to another thought, which itself leads to yet another thought. For example, you think, "Oh, look at that attractive person," and that's the first thought. Then the next thought is, "Oh, maybe that person would like me?" Then comes the thought, "Is it possible that we could be together?" Pretty soon we start to imagine being together with that person and the emotions and sensations associated with that. Through this process, we develop a whole descriptive framework that follows from the initial thought of attraction. If we are practicing short moments of open intelligence, repeated many times, when that initial thought comes up, we can relax completely and allow the thought to disappear like a line drawn in water. When we see that the thought disappears in and of itself, we see that each thought is free in its own place in an open intelligence that is not limited to or identified with an individual. It is an instinctive open intelligence that appears within the basic state and is inseparable from it. The basic state is the basis of every single phenomenon. Unflinching in the face of data. We can never be unaffected by external data unless we are first unaffected by our own internal data. There is a wonderful word we can use to describe how it is to be totally unaffected by data, and that word is unflinching. The word means that we are courageously unmoved and unafraid in facing anything that we experience. So, by being unflinching in the face of our own data, without trying to change them into something else, we will see that we're not affected by anyone else's data either. This is a huge shift because we spend all of our lives reacting to our internal data and to the external data of people, places, and things. When we are unflinching in the face of our own internal data, we become unflinching in the face of external data, no matter what they are. The fruit of our own experience is what teaches us this. It's when we simply stop. We put our foot on the brake and say, I'm just not going to let myself be scared and confused anymore. I'm not going to allow myself to live in a terror that is of my own making. Part of that is admitting that the terror is of our own making. No matter what age we are, when we commit to our unflinching nature, we give ourselves the greatest gift. That open intelligence and unflinching nature is the basis from which we want to live. It's the only basis by which we can make breakthroughs that help deal with the dilemma the world is in. From our fundamental state of open intelligence, no matter what is going on inside us or around us, we do not see it in the same way we did before. No matter how gut-wrenching the emotions, no matter how plaguing the thoughts, no matter how overwhelming the bodily sensations, no matter how extreme the horror of reactivity to what's occurring globally, we cannot see it in the way we did before. If we have the perspective of clarity, we can immediately see what isn't working in all the current forms of inquiry, organizations, and knowledge, and we're not fooled by anything. No matter how commanding the voice of conventional authority may be, we are not fooled, and it is increasingly this way. Through clearly seeing the nature of our own data, we begin to have tremendous clarity about everything that is going on. We can see what is going on in the people, places, or things we encounter. It doesn't mean that we're spouting off about our ability to do so, but it means that we have the decisive recognition of open intelligence to act in a wise and beneficial manner. If we are not unflinching, we'll be going right along with the way everybody else thinks about everything. We won't be able to see that we can create fields of knowledge that have never been created before. Unless we're unflinching in the face of all data, we can never see that we can go beyond all current knowledge, whether it's in music, science, mathematics, or whatever it is. When we're unflinching in the direct encounter with all of our own data, we see that we rest in the basic knowledge of the way things are. Being unflinching doesn't mean that our experience will look a certain way. It doesn't mean that every little thing we see or come into contact with is going to look rosy and beautiful. It means that whatever our experience is, it shines with brilliant open intelligence, and we're unflinching in the direct encounter with it. We don't see ourselves as vulnerable or controlled by our experience any longer. It's really important to take complete charge. You are what you are. No one can give your true nature to you, and no one can take it away from you, but you can be sure that there are people who can help you be unflinching in your own experience of it. The ultimate satisfaction. A lot of people seem to be happy in the surreal wasteland of data, and that's just the way it is. We once tried to convince ourselves we were happy there too. Once we decide that something is going to make us happy, we take that up and we spend a lot of time gritting our teeth and saying, "This is making me happy, I know it is." All the while we are wailing inside thinking, "Get me out of here." At every turn there is some kind of seductive influence to lure us into thinking that this time a datum is going to make us happy. As we gain more certainty in open intelligence, we see that this isn't the case, and we are just not willing to go there anymore. We know that no matter how seductive the data might be, there really isn't anything there. When we rest as the pure space of all these seductive influences, then we can really come to know ourselves to be beyond seduction and entertainment. What is more important, to chase after yet another alluring fantasy, or to gain familiarity and certainty in that which is totally substantial in its insubstantiality? By gaining certainty in open intelligence, when we are young we save ourselves from a lifetime of being seduced by things that cannot provide any satisfaction. The things we might think are going to give some kind of satisfaction, intimate relationships, having children, developing careers, are not sources of ultimate satisfaction. We may have tried to make ourselves believe that they were bringing us ultimate satisfaction, but after gaining certainty in open intelligence, we see these things for what they are. Ethical spontaneity. What are ethics? Ethics are a moral system turned outwards. They're the way our inner moral system appears in our behavior. Most people think that cultivating one's character in a positive way is the epitome of what a human being can be, but it isn't. The epitome of what a human being can be is natural perfection, and the recognition of that natural perfection leads to an ethical spontaneity that no acquired system of ethics or morality can provide. What greater moral and ethical system could we have than the moral and ethical system of open intelligence, which allows us to be of benefit in all of our activities? We have profound insight into everyone we meet, and this is the basis of true compassion, of true connection, and of a human society that is really profound and great. All of this comes from gaining certainty in open intelligence. Our parents, schools, and churches might teach us the difference between right and wrong, but if we only know those ideals, we'll always be living in a world of differences. There are very few people who can ever live up to those ideals. However, by gaining certainty in open intelligence, we can discover the basis of spontaneous morality and ethics. This is a much better way to go. Some of the people who have received the short moments training are in prison or even on death row. There is an incredible proliferation of data associated with being in prison, but many of these men are very ripe for gaining certainty in open intelligence, because they can no longer take advantage of most of the antidotes they had in their life before prison. Their previous world of antidotes has ceased to exist, including the antidote of criminal activity, if in fact that's what they've done. So many of them are very quick to take to the short moments training. Many say, "Wow, I'm in prison, but I've never felt so free." No amount of ethical trainings ever stopped them from doing what they did or allowed them to really understand their behavior, but now they've naturally found that ethical and moral impulse within themselves. Only certainty in the open intelligence can help any of us understand why we do what we do. Whether we're on death row in a maximum security prison or we're running around freely in the world, we have to have open intelligence to be able to understand why we do what we do. Open intelligence in sleep and dreams. Most of us haven't really thought too much about dreams and sleep. We feel that when we go to sleep, we're not really consciously present at all. And when we are dreaming, all kinds of things happen, and we have no control over them whatsoever. However, by gaining certainty in open intelligence, all of our data, whether they are in waking, dreaming or sleeping come to our assistance in seeing things as they truly are. When data, including those of our own body and mind, appear in dreams, they seem to be real and independently existing, but they are not. Maybe in one dream we've gone through some horrendous experience, but in another dream we have something great happen. However, whether it's a negative dream or a positive dream, they're equally insubstantial. That is such a great teaching that leads us to see our daytime appearances with much more discernment. Birth, life, death, waking, dreaming, and sleeping are a continuum of open intelligence. The more we instinctively recognize open intelligence, the more this will be clear to us, and the more we will have the same kind of understanding about our daytime experiences that we have about our dreams. A way to be introduced to this understanding is to maintain open intelligence when you go to sleep. As you fall asleep, notice that the data become more subtle. They pass into a condition that is more dreamlike, even though you are superficially awake. You can still identify yourself as being awake even though there are sequences of data that are phantasmagoric. What you have identified as your body and mind are sleeping in your bed, but open intelligence is still wide awake, vivid, and alert. That is particularly convincing because most of us have felt very powerless in the face of dreams and sleep. Instead of getting wrapped up in describing the subtle data or the phantasmagoric images that occur in a dream, the focus is on maintaining open intelligence. At that point, there is only lucid open intelligence without anything else. You might recognize that you are asleep and there might be some images appearing, but you can recognize that, even though you are asleep, you're aware. Open intelligence is aware of sleeping and of dreams. You as a sleeper and dreamer are the self-manifestation of open intelligence. This experience you have at night is also extremely convincing in terms of the data you have during the day. You have now transmuted these two states of sleep and dreams into their true clarity nature of open intelligence. With this insight, you won't feel so affected by the data that occur during the day. It is important to recognize that this practice is not necessary for gaining certainty in open intelligence. It's a very convincing and authoritative practice, but it's nothing to get all wrapped up in. What's most important is to identify open intelligence as your bare state of naturalness all the time.